So do you believe that enough? Do you believe that there were indigenous black people to America?
I would
Probably.
I would argue that.
From boats from 10,000 years before, from Asia across the Bering Strait down, colonized.
Or maybe back when it was just Pangea and we had what's the land strait?
The Bering Strait.
The Bering Strait. Yeah.
Pangea was, I think, well before humans existed. And I think the theory with the Bering Strait is that like modern Native Americans descended from Asians. I would not be surprised to find that some point throughout history, black people made it to the United States or to the current North American continent, just not in great enough numbers to establish any kind of base or whatever, and the Asian cultures did. Pacific Islanders made it pretty dang far. The reason
I asked that is because my on my mother's side, her grandmother was considered a native, or they didn't really like being called Native American. They liked being called Native people. But she was a native person, and this lady is just as dark as me, but with a different texture of hair.
But I mean, let's say, when did the slave trade start? Like 1619?
Right. They also that,
yeah. So imagine someone is brought 1619. Somehow they end up living with Native Americans.
And intermingle.
100 years later, a child is born to a Native American tribe, and they're black.
Right.
Are they indigenous?
Yes.
Sure. I mean, they're descended from a Native American tribe who was here, you know. So these arguments the left makes about like indigenous also fall apart instantly when you ask about Europe. So
apparently it started in 1526, just to interject.
Right, 1619
to Brazil was the first transatlantic slave voyage.
Yeah, bro.
1619 was the United States argument.
It's like these idiots that tried to discredit me because my dad's from Cuba. It's like, you don't think ships stopped in Cuba?
Oh, yeah.
Sure my daddy's darker than me.
I had a white dude at Occupy Wall Street tell me that, because they had this thing set up called progressive stack. That means if you want to talk, you have to be to varying degrees on the hierarchy of oppression or whatever. And then
that's crazy.
Yeah. So like if you'd raise your hand and you were white, this is what they did. It's called progressive stack.
I wasn't allowed to speak either.
Yep. The stack was this. You have the group gathering, everyone raises their hand. Then based on who raised their hand first, they would select you, and then you would speak in that order. They called it the stack. Then they very quickly were like, well, that's not fair because white men speak too much, so we're going to make the progressive stack. So based on your oppression Olympics, so like if you're a white man, this is really funny. White guy raises his hand, and they're like, are there any people who are not white who want to speak? And he goes, I'm gay. And they're like, oh, you're good then. It was like, all right. And one guy actually was like, I'm not really gay, but I wanted to speak, so I just.
And let me ask, I mean, all of y'all are white or white appearing. We got an African, he's more African.
Well, here, real quick. This is the point I was making. The point I was making was one of these, when I was questioning why they were doing it, this white liberal guy says, well, look, you're white. You wouldn't understand what it's like to be oppressed. And I was like, I'm Korean. And I only recently learned this, but I'm part Japanese. And whenever I tell anybody, I'll be like, well, I'm German, Irish, and Korean, but I just found out I'm 5% Japanese. They go, ooh. Because everybody knows what that means. The part of my family, let's put it this way, the Japanese man did not enter my family consensually. Yeah, I am part Japanese, not because... I like to tell people, I imagine it was a Romeo and Juliet story where the Japanese man and the Korean woman were like, I don't care what my family says, I love you.
We'll meet on a boat somewhere in the middle.
And we'll escape together. No, they were warring for a long time and hated each other, and Japan occupied Korea, but there was a lot of war between them. And and then someone else pointed out the percentage of Japanese I am indicates it wasn't once, but more than once. And I'm like, who's this white liberal dude to tell me that, you have no historic oppression, so you can't possibly speak? And I'm just like, why do I have to tell you my race in order to be considered worthy of speaking?
Because they are openly racist on the left.
Yeah.
It's only skin deep with them,
Yeah, and your skin's not even white. That's the most annoying
I know
part.
someone who's doing improv, and she's Puerto Rican. Doesn't look as Puerto Rican.
Yeah, if she does
think.
improv, we don't take. They can't even speak.
She went up and did a Puerto Rican character, and all the white people in her team said you can't do that because you're not Puerto Rican, and it was offensive. She's like, I'm actually Puerto Rican, because they're just looking at you how you look, your skin.
That's what I'm saying, bro.
It's
like
ridiculous.
Like any type of improv is the gayest thing. Like, what? You guys, they all want to be something they're not. Like, I was a thespian at first before I became a comedian, bro. Like, that was my thing, to be an actor. And you got to hang around all these white people that walk around talking with a fake British accent. And it's like, you're so fucking fake.
Dude.
Well, hold on. The only accent they're allowed to do is British. Otherwise they're being racist.
Right. So, would you not do SNL?
I do what Shane's doing.
All right.
Well, that's what I was going to say. Shane Gillis did an Asian accent, and they canceled him because of that, and some other jokes within the podcast or whatever.
Right.
But I'm like, dude, there's this guy. I don't know if I can't remember who it was. It might have been Lawai 86. Is that the channel?
Yeah.
Might have been. I might be referencing the wrong channel. Mm-hmm. But there was a guy remember when the girl wore the Chinese dress to prom? What is it called? Like a gi or whatever?
Right.
The Komodo?
No, it wasn't a Komodo. That's Japanese.
Oh, sorry.
She wore a Chinese dress.
Hey, double racism.
I don't know if I'm Asian enough to give you a pass on that one, but I'll try. But anyway, she wore.
Thank you.
I accept it. No, she wore a gi. The left said she was culturally appropriating and it was racist. So some dude was in China and he walked up to Chinese people and he's like, "What do you think about this girl in the dress?" And they're like, "Oh, very nice, like very good." Oh, they're speaking Mandarin, of course. Everyone he asked, they were like, "Oh, hey, really cool. Like, people in America are wearing our clothes." In America, they're like, "She's racist. Yep. You can't wear that."
It'd be like if a Japanese dude wore a cowboy outfit. That'd be cool.
What's really?
That'd be cool.
Can you pull something up for me?
Maybe. Depends on what it is.
Type in Macon, Georgia, colored waiting area sign.
Oh, like from not apartheid, but like
I just want to show you this.
Okay.
This is currently in the city that I grew up in.
Colored waiting room?
Is that racist?
What does it say?
Colored
waiting room.
I guess the issue is this. Like, how do you define racism?
I don't like
and what color? Because my skin's color. It's pink.
So the basis of racism, and I said this the other day on the podcast, is a battle for resources. That's where the basis of racism comes from. If we're all in a 20-acre plot and y'all say the black man is stronger, or the white South African is smarter, or he has more techniques to trap an animal.
Better at math.
Yeah. So he knows how to trap an animal. He knows what time this animal. That's where it came from. So how is that?
Well, no, I think you're completely right. Right. So racism is one community saying, particularly based on race, we don't want to share with another community. Right. And so when it came to land of slavery and then the rise of segregation and Jim Crow and all that stuff, they're basically saying it's our community and your community is separate. Mm-hmm. We don't want you taking our stuff. You don't take our stuff. We'll keep it separate. They want to control the resources they have and allocate only to their own.
The slavery and racism got conflated in the United States because it's not the same thing. Mm-hmm. Because the African slave trade happened to be people with darker skin from Africa, that darker tint, whatever the hell. They think of it as a racist thing, but slavery is just human slavery. The Romans took whoever is slave. If they weren't Roman.
Only that, the British Crown enslaved Americans to force them to work on their naval vessels.
And there were Irish people were enslaved, part of the slave trade.
Bro, when I try to have any type of debate with another black person who opposes my views, and I tell them, we were basically sold by our own people who looked at us, because it's like, think about taking, like, I don't know your land. I don't know up here where you're at. So think about a white European male coming to Africa to trap Africans who doesn't know the lay of the land. Like, slavery, those are the spoils of war.
Yeah, it was a huge African slave trade.
What was that movie that just came out about the female warrior?
Talking about the Bob Marley movie? No, just
no. Do you guys know what I'm talking about?
What's it about?
There was like a black warrior woman.
Oh, that movie that did horrible. Yeah.
And they omitted from the film that she was a slave trader.
Viola Davis was playing. Yeah.
They were like, the reason, like, everyone's asking, like, hey, she was a slave trader. She captured black people and then sold them to Europeans. Like, why don't they talk about
the Woman King?
Yeah, something like that.
The West African slave trade. This is what I've heard. Do you know more about it, Serge? I mean, the tribal chieftains would enslave people and then sell them.
Bro, I think too much, right? So I had this what do you call it when you think of something but it's not based
epiphany.
on
Wait, no.
Not an epiphany, conspiracy.
Oh, okay. When you think of something that's not based in reality.
Bro, you got me drinking that $2,000 tequila. I can't even think right now. But I had a conspiracy about Harriet Tubman, right? So there was this like sketch I wanted to write, but nobody would touch it. And I'm like, think about this for a minute. Harriet Tubman freed, I think, under 100 slaves, right? How many slaves did she free?
Let's find out.
I think it was 79. I don't think it was an astronomical amount of slaves.
Let's find out. We got Google right here.
So badass.
70.
Oh, you're right.
70.
Yeah.
19th. She rescued 300 people in 19 trips. Oh, a myth. Fact. It was about 70 people, approximately 13 trips.
There we go. So Harriet Tubman freed about 70 people. So I had this conspiracy that I wanted to make a whole movie about. What if Harriet Tubman was only freeing these slaves to pay a debt to another slave master in order to save her family?
But elaborate, like.
So she's taken. So say for instance, one giant plantation, kind of like the thing that Leonardo DiCaprio had in Django, and how he went to go find his girl. Yeah. So say somebody at that plantation was very dear to Harriet Tubman. Say, for instance, that's what it was. Like they had her husband, her and her 2 kids, or her mom and aunt. So say she told them, hey, I'm a free slave, but what I can do for exchange of these is bring you a whole bunch of more slaves.
So she wasn't freeing them. She was bringing them on a trip and then delivering them to a slave.
She was a human trafficker.
That's the conspiracy theory that I had.
You could have it in the movie seem like the slave owners like go disrupt all these other plantations by letting their slaves free, but then you can find out later he's actually working for them.
Now, hold on.
Shit.
With Tyler Perry.
This is a great idea. so hold on. Hear me out, David. Now, it's a great idea. In order to get this financed, we're going to have to make Harriet white and blonde.
But only at the end of the movie when she finds out she's a bad guy.
The point is, we can make your film about Harriet Tubman, but we're going to call her Karen Tillman, and she will be a white blonde woman from Atlanta who is trafficking humans. And then you'll get the financing for your film, and that's Hollywood.
Yeah.
See, that's the thing I asked Willie D, man. You know, like when we talked about the whole Kyle Rittenhouse thing, and it's like and you know they're angry at him for, you know, the things that transpired that night when he had to do what he had to do.
A judge ruled that he defended himself.
But here's the thing,
a jury did. Sorry,
black people are mad at him.
Yeah,
but he did nothing to a black person.
Yep,
they think he did.
So when I asked on the podcast I was on, and they were like, because those were allies, and I'm like, but in this same conversation, you call white people the enemy, or you call white people racist. So at what point can we determine who is an ally and who is an enemy? Because you can tell me you're for me right now, but what does that mean? That's what I'm saying. Like when it comes to the black community, like what determines who is and who isn't an ally? I mean, I don't care because I'll never go outside and march. Not because I don't want to walk.
It was just the optics. Like they turned Rittenhouse into the anti-BLM, even though he was just protecting himself and had nothing to do with.
He was protecting his.
He wasn't shooting at black people. It wasn't even grandfathers. I think he heard that there was someone who wanted their business to be protected.
Yeah,
and he just showed up. He actually did first aid on some people.
He was outside asking for first aid.
Yeah,
and not to mention, this dude was a pretty good shot.
He was a really good shot.
Falling on his ass, hit one dude in the bicep.
Oh yeah, he blew that guy's arm right off.
Damn.
I'll tell you what does it.
Well, let's clarify.
Indicate if you're an ally.
So
is your skin
that
color.
guy who got his arm blown off had posted he wished he had killed Kyle Rittenhouse.
Yes.
Wow.
Kyle Rittenhouse fired as he was being approached by a man with a gun, and a jury ruled it was in self-defense.
And one of them was abused children in his past life.
So
I mean, it's a wild story, dude.
Cal's my friend now.
That's awesome.
Yes, he's my friend.
Like
now.
since what happened with the George Floyd joke?
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Nice.
Because
we've had him on the show. He's awesome.
Yeah,
he's a cool guy.
Yeah, he is.
And you know, for me, it's like, bro, like you were 17 at the time.
I know.
Crazy.
Even if you were out there on dirt, even if you was out there, like I'm gonna get somebody who's trying to burn some shit down. Like even if you're 17.
But
and the fact that the dude hit you in the head with a skateboard twice, and you still had the cognitive dissonance to.
No, not cognitive dissonance.
Oh,
that's
sorry.
a broken brain. Cognitive fortitude.
Cognitive fortitude. I've been drinking, sorry. Cognitive fortitude.
To maintain your composure, and even tried to turn himself in. Thanks for watching this clip from the Timcast IRL podcast. Hang out with us live Monday through Friday at 8 p.m. and become a member over at timcast.com for uncensored, members-only shows exclusive. Thanks for hanging out, and we'll see you all next time.